Welcome to A Woman's Strength, empowering stories from struggles to triumph. I'm Rosita, your host, fellow warrior, and advocate for resilience and empowerment. Through this podcast, we share authentic stories of women who have faced adversity and emerged as living testimonies of strength. Their stories will inspire you to break free from limitations, embrace your authenticity, and rise above the challenges life throws your way. Together, let's discover the strength within us and create a community of empowered women who support and uplift one another. Join me every second and fourth Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific on Facebook as we uncover the keys to resilience, self-discovery, and integrating faith with personal growth. A woman's strength begins now. Hello and welcome to A Woman's Strength, empowering stories from struggles to triumph. In this podcast, we'll be talking about women who have overcome struggles. They have been through it and they got through it, and they're going to share their stories with us. And also, stories are great because when we feel lost, where we are just feeling beaten down, when we hear another woman's story of triumph, man, that just, I don't know about you guys, but it picks me back up and says, okay, I can do this. I can do this. And it ignites hope. So that's the purpose for this whole podcast, is to share women's stories of the struggles, but not staying in the victimville of it, but to move forward and see that you can overcome it. But you've got to be part of the process, not the problem. Right, Dee?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to be part of the solution. Not the problem. You got to live intentionally, right?
Yes, absolutely. So, by the way, I'm Rosita Perez. I am the host of this podcast. I am a self-discovery coach, and I have with me today the lovely Dee Cloud, who is a breast cancer recovery strategist who has been through it. And today we get to hear her story of the challenges and how she overcame and where she is today. Oh, you guys, this is an amazing story. Dee and I connected on a leadership program that we're still involved in. And I just knew something was special about her when I saw her. And when I heard her story, I was like, oh, I've got to have her on this show. So Dee, welcome.
Thank you so much, Rosita. Thank you so much for having me here. And thank you so much for just the opportunity to share my story, to connect with you and to connect with your beautiful audience. I am just grateful to be here. Thank you.
Oh, we're glad to have you because so many women, people, but a lot of women are going through breast cancer right now. I mean, 2 people in my family have gone through it and still in that 5-year mark.
Absolutely.
Tell your story and share pivotal moments in your life when you face the C word, the cancer struggle, and share how you overcame and where you're at today. I'm excited to hear. So go ahead, Dee.
Thank you. I thought it was interesting that you shared that you know 2 people right now who are within the 5-year range, right, of having breast cancer. And we talked about how there are so many women who are being affected by this disease. And statistics show that 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer, right, in the US. And so when you think about that, I always say you've either been touched by breast cancer or you know someone who has. And that's just how prevalent it is now. But I don't come to bring fear. I come to bring hope and inspiration. And the beautiful thing is it's no longer a death sentence the way that it used to be back in long time ago, right? Early diagnosis is key. And so I want to start out just by saying that for any woman who's listening to this podcast, if you're finding yourself battling breast cancer at the moment, just know that science has advanced so much. And so I always say now we can consider it a bump in the road and just ask ourselves, what is this divine tap on the shoulder meant to teach me? Because I am a firm believer that no one goes through something like breast cancer and they come out the same. So you asked me to share, and that was my very long intro. But I get really passionate about this topic. And as introduced, Rosita shared that I am a breast cancer recovery strategist. And so, what that means is that I help breast cancer survivors move past the fear, trauma, and suffering of breast cancer to moving to a place of peace, joy, and fulfillment so they can truly thrive. Hence, the reason I am so passionate about leaving you guys with hope and inspiration instead of fear, worry, and anxiety. So it's always my desire to leave people better than I found them, right? And it does me or you any good for me to shower a already dark topic with even more darkness. So I'm always trying to find the inspiration and the motivation. Even when I talk to other breast cancer survivors, I'm like, okay, so what did you get out of it? Because I got stuff out of my diagnosis, but it wasn't always this way. And as Rosita shared, I am a two-time breast cancer survivor. So the very first time I got my divine tap on the shoulder, I went through everything the medical team told me to go. They laid out the treatment plan. I followed it to the T. I went through chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, and was happy to get back to life as usual. And I do mean usual, meaning I didn't make any changes to anything in my life. And at the time, I was in a really unhappy marriage. I was at a really stressful job, and I wasn't living as my authentic self. But that cancer diagnosis didn't scare me enough, or didn't, I don't like the word scare, it didn't motivate me to make any changes, right? I went right back to the same environment that had created cancer in the first place. So it wasn't a shock to me. It was a disappointment, but it wasn't a shock to me when I got my second divine tap on the shoulder, right? But it was my nurse who got my attention, and she said to me, Dee, you really got to do something about all the stress in your life. And I had never associated stress with breast cancer, right? To me, it was all anything I was putting in my body, on my body, or that was in the environment, right? I never thought about the amount of stress that I was under and how it was affecting my body on a cellular level. And when she shared that with me, it was my aha moment. And literally just had to stop and take a moment to really assess where I was in life, where I was struggling and unhappy, and what I was going to do about it.
So
Right?
let me ask you a question. The first time that you heard the news that you had breast cancer, take me there.
I never thought of it as a death sentence, right? It was like, oh, wow, here's something I have to get past. And I remember when I got the diagnosis, sitting in the doctor's office and not really hearing anything. And lots of ladies that I talked to, we don't remember anything the doctor says after that, right? Because you just kind of really go into, I immediately went into living into the future, right? Like, what does that mean for my kids? Because they were at the time 5 and 14. Like, will they grow up without me? Is this really a death sentence, or can I be as hopeful as I want to be and know that this is just a bump in the road, right? So I remember feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room, right?
Yeah.
And feeling like I had to trust in my medical team, right? That was my primary thought, is they're the ones who are going to get me through this, and there was nothing that I needed to do except to rely on them.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is, yes, I got the diagnosis, but something in your mindset, probably in your spirit, is like, nope, not going to receive it as a death sentence. Excuse me. Instead, your mind kind of shifted.
Absolutely.
I mean, you still went through what the future, like, oh no, what about my kids and what's going to happen? But it didn't sound like you stayed in that muck.
No, because it was very early on. It didn't take me long to realize at all that my family was watching how I was handling it, right? And I knew that as the leader of my family, that however I responded is how they were going to respond. So I put on the brave face, especially that first time around, right? I went to many of my appointments by myself. I didn't allow people to be there for me because I felt like I needed to be strong. I wouldn't suggest that to anybody listening to this podcast right now. What I would say now, if I had it to do all over again, I would allow people to be there for me.
That's great insight. And so you just pushed forward and you went to the doctor's appointment by yourself. Like that sounded like you had some sort of inner strength that was like, come on, Dee, come on, Dee, come on, let's go.
Well, Rosita, it had a lot to just do. Inner strength was all I knew, right? Like I grew up having to survive. I remember we grew up in poverty, right? And I remember many times not having food in the house to eat. So it was bossing up and facing challenges was really all I knew. And so to me, it wasn't any different than anything else that I had experienced. And I know that sounds really depressing, but that was just the truth of the matter, because what I realized is that I wasn't living my life on purpose. I wasn't living my life with intention. I was always being reactive instead of proactive. I allowed things to choose me instead of me choosing things.
I love that. Living reactive versus, I say, reacting versus responding. So when we react in that moment, but learning to respond is a whole different world. And I'm telling you, it took me 5.5 decades to get a hold of that.
I feel that.
Yeah, when you grow up in the mindset, not really, struggling, let me put it like that, right? And you have to boss up. You have to. There is no, you just got to jump. And strong women across the world have been doing that for such a long time. So
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that you are sitting here sharing, being a strong woman, having the diagnosis, and then having that experience, that painful experience that actually gave you the strength to keep on going, because that's all you knew, you said. That's how to survive. That's all you knew.
That's all I knew.
Wow, that's awesome. I think that's important for strong women to really grab a hold to. Yes, we had hard childhoods, painful childhoods. And I'm not saying there was no not good moments, but I'm saying that the struggle and the hardships brought us to a point where we can handle things and we are survivors. So
Absolutely.
I think that, yeah, if you shift that mindset, which is what it sounded like you did in the first as well as the second diagnosis, or that was a little bit of a shift though in the second, right?
That's where the shift happened. Absolutely. But to your point, when you grow up surviving, when you grow up in struggle, it builds for most people, it builds a resilience in you, right? And so it was that resilience that I believe I relied on to get me through that first diagnosis and be my own strong support system, because I didn't want my family to worry. It wasn't that they didn't want to be there. I was like, oh no, I got it. I don't want to put anybody out. I don't want to, any of all of that. And so that second diagnosis though was my fork in the road. It was like, you're going to either continue down this path, right, where you're unhappy, you're stressed out, you're not living as your authentic self, or you're going to make some changes. And you've already seen what it looks like if you go back down the same path, right? Because now here we are with a second breast cancer diagnosis, because nothing has changed, right? So it was like, okay, what changes can I make, and what's preventing me from making them? And the answer was fear. I was afraid. And I believe that will ring true for so many strong women listening to this podcast, that even though we're strong, we can be afraid simultaneously, right? And I was afraid of the backlash of acknowledging that I'm a lesbian. I was afraid of ending my marriage to my then husband because A, he was such a great guy and I knew how much he cared about me. And B, I didn't want to hurt him, right? So I was staying there and I was suffering, even though I knew I didn't want to be there and I knew it was unfair to him as well, right? And then there was this job that, yeah, I was making decent money, but I'm bringing this work home with me every day and I'm stressed the hell out. So, what am I going to do about my life? Right? Became the question. Like, you have these areas where none of this stuff is going to change unless you get out of the back seat, the passenger seat, or the back seat of your life and get in the driver's seat and figure out where you're going.
Okay, so that's when you started making the shift. So what did you do with all you, like, you recognized everything that was most probably contributing to the medical stuff going on in you, the cancer. So what did you change now that you have this new awareness?
Now that I had this, well, that my nurse was my first peek into the awareness, right? She's the one who got my attention, but then I started studying and reading. And I read this book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And in the book, she talks about breast cancer being suppressed emotions. Well, I was a ball of suppressed emotions, right? And it gave me the courage to act. I finally got the courage to ask for a divorce. I finally got the courage to leave the job, and even though it meant taking a pay cut, which wasn't the best time to be taking pay cuts, right? If you're getting ready to ask for a divorce, and I finally got the courage to acknowledge not only to everybody else in the world or in my circle that I'm a lesbian, but most importantly to myself, right? Because I didn't want to even acknowledge it to myself. I was too afraid of the backlash. My mom, may she rest in peace, was super religious and our relationship was already fragile and I didn't want to cause even a bigger rift, right? I had friends who are also ultra religious and I was concerned about it causing a rift between us. I was concerned about being judged in society, right? Like, oh my God, he was such a great guy. She broke his heart. She's a lesbian. She knew, all these things that you're worrying about what they are going to say. But my revelation came one day when I realized that A, they can't hurt me without my permission, right? Their words can't hurt me without my permission. And B, the only the only people I needed to please and make happy was myself. Happiness is an inside job. I learned that as well. And if I'm going to live to please God, I have to please me too, right? Because and I don't want to turn this into a religious talk, but I do believe it is a spiritual awakening that you have, right? When you realize that my connection and my relationship with God is not contingent upon what other people think about me. It is only contingent upon what that relationship looks like, feels like, and is to me.
Yes. I like what you say about basically talking about self-love, right? We were taken care of, but we didn't have that skill set of being a communicative person with our feelings and, processing our feelings. And my parents did the best that they could. I'm not downing them by no means. But the Bible does talk about, love your neighbors as you love yourself. And if you don't love yourself,
how you going to love your neighbor?
Yeah. Yeah. What did you do once you said, okay, I am a boss. I've kicked cancer in the behind. I'm still standing strong. I've learned what you as a woman needs, and you're standing in your truth. So all of that awareness, all of that self-love, where are you at today?
Oh my God. Rosita, it made me brave, right? It made me brave. It made me bold. endeavored in so many things after that awakening, right? I felt like I just became unstoppable. Like nothing can touch me now, right? And so
Yes.
I started a few businesses, including investing in real estate. I just recently realized the lifelong dream and published my first book entitled Beauty in the Breakdown: Finding Peace in the Midst of Life's Disruptions, which is available for purchase on Amazon, or you can go to beautyinthebreakdownbook.com and you can purchase it there from my website directly. But
Wow.
and my true love, my baby, is serving breast cancer survivors, right? Helping them make the rest of their life the best of their life. If they're feeling stuck, confused, how do I move forward? How do I take care of myself in the best way for me, where I'm not feeling restricted, like where I don't feel like I'm punishing myself, but I'm really loving myself from a place, really taking care of myself, I'm sorry, from a place of self-love and not a place of deprivation, right? So
Mm.
that sounds like something that you are listening. If you're listening and it sounds like something you need support with, call me. I would absolutely love to hold your hand and walk you along this journey. You've been through so much already. You deserve to not just survive, but to actually thrive and have everything in this life you desire.
Now, do you have like a discovery call,
Yes,
correct? And that's a free discovery call where they can connect with you, maybe,
absolutely.
unpack some things. Because, hey, I know certain things in life we cannot just talk to anybody. We want to talk to people that have been through it.
Absolutely.
And so, do you offer something like that?
I have a complimentary breakthrough session that I call my Thriving on Purpose breakthrough session. And during that complimentary 30-minute session, we're going to unpack where you are right now, what your biggest challenges are, and it is my promise that I'll leave you with a mini plan to get you in action so that you can feel like you are not only just feel like you're making movement. Okay, the phone would ring right now, but not only feel like you are making progress, but where you are actually making progress to move beyond the diagnosis and make the rest of your life the best of your life.
And so, how do people get in contact with you?
So I am on all of the social media platforms as I am Dee Manuel Cloud. That's Instagram, that's Facebook, and TikTok. I'm on all three of those as I am Dee Manuel Cloud. And you can also email support at dmanuelcloud.com. And that's the quickest way to reach me, or you can direct message me on any of the platforms.
Thank you so much, Dee.
No,
You are
thank you.
such a beautiful person inside and out. And I'm just blessed to be able to know you, to hear your story, to be in community with you in the leadership group. Like you're always coming with it. You're not like that. I see Dee at least 2 or 3 times a week online, and she's never like, she's constantly full of life. And you appear to bring your genuine self every single time. And I totally applaud that and all that you're doing and all that you have been through. You're an overcomer, thriver. You
Oh,
move from being survivor to a thriver.
to a
And
thriver, and that's the name of the game, right? Like,
yes.
it's thank you so much for the opportunity to hopefully inspire someone who's listening, to hopefully motivate and encourage a breast cancer survivor who's listening to know that not only can life be good after breast cancer, but it can be better than ever before.
I would like to leave our listeners with this quote: strength doesn't come from what you can do, it comes from overcoming the things you thought you couldn't. That's by Ricky Rogers.
I love that.
So, Dee, thank you so much. Please get in contact with her. She is absolutely amazing. She will walk with you through understanding cancer, beating it, and thriving through it.
Absolutely.